In my previous troubleshooting video, I didn't give the L3 and R3 switches the attention they deserve. So today we're going to focus primarily on those switch connections. You'll need a multimeter, a cheap one works perfectly fine. An accessory lead kit with grabber clips will make things a lot easier. The mainboard I'm using in this video is a BDM-030. Every mainboard model routes its traces a little differently, but the actual switch pin locations stay consistent across all the versions I've worked on, at least so far. I'll include a link in the description to a site with really clear, high-quality images of the different mainboards, covering up through the BDM-040 at least. Now we're moving on to pin identification. Here we're looking at the bottom layer of the board, showing the terminals for the right joystick. The layout is identical for both the left and right joysticks. These four terminals make up the joystick frame, and they are all connected to ground. These three terminals belong to the up-down axis sensor. These three over here are for the left-right axis sensor. And these four are the R3 switch terminals. For each sensor, one terminal goes to ground, one goes to 1.8 volts, and the center terminal is the output. That center output voltage changes depending on the joystick position. For the R3 switch, these two terminals connect to 1.8 volts. These two are the switch output. The outputs from the switch and the sensor outputs trace their way back to the microcontroller. Inside the switch itself, these two terminals are connected together, and these two are also connected together. Now let's move on to some resistance tests. You don't need the battery connected for these. In fact, you need the battery removed and no USB plugged in for all resistance measurements. Set your multimeter to ohms mode. Most meters use the Greek uppercase omega symbol to indicate ohms. With the leads not touching anything, the meter should show overload or a very high value, often with an M for mega ohms. That just means the resistance is higher than the meter can read, normal when the circuit is open. When you short the leads together, the meter should read close to 0 ohms. Here I'm getting less than 1 ohm, which is what you want to see. First test, make sure all the 1.8 volt lines are properly connected. I'm using the 1.8 volt terminal on the left joystick's up-down axis sensor as my common test point. If the left joystick's up-down movement is working, we already know this terminal is correctly connected to the 1.8 volt supply. From here, I can check the 1.8 volt pin on the left joystick's left-right sensor. Low resistance, good connection. Same thing for the 1.8 volt terminals on the L3 switch. Again, very low resistance. Now using the same common point, check the 1.8 volt terminals on the right joystick. All of these 1.8 volt pins should show almost exactly the same low resistance to each other. Basically the same reading you get when shorting the leads together. You can run the exact same test on the ground terminals. Ground traces are much less likely to be damaged or broken, but it's still worth confirming they're all tied together with near zero resistance. Let's look at a common scenario. The right joystick axis movements are working perfectly, but the R3 switch isn't responding at all. First, measure the resistance between the 1.8 volt supply pin on one of the sensors and the 1.8 volt supply pin on the R3 switch. If you see high resistance or open circuit, there's your problem. It's actually an easy fix. Just run a thin jumper wire from the sensor's 1.8 volt terminal to the switch's 1.8 volt terminal to restore the connection. But what if the 1.8 volt checks out and shows a good low resistance path to the switch? Then move on to testing the switch itself. Measure resistance directly across these two terminals of the R3 switch. It helps to have the joystick knob in place, or a third hand handy, so you can press the switch easily while making the measurement. With the switch not pressed, you should see open circuit or very high resistance, mega ohm range. When you press the switch, it should drop to near 0 ohms, basically a short. If the switch is old and worn, it might read in the tens of ohms and still function fine. If the resistance doesn't change at all when you press the switch is defective. In that case, the joystick module will need to be replaced, but at least you've identified the fault. If the switch tests good, open when released, near short when pressed, then you're looking at the worst case scenario. Either the trace from the switch back to the microcontroller is broken, or the microcontroller input itself is damaged. If this problem started right after replacing the joystick, it's almost certainly a damaged trace. We'll cover what to do about that later once we move into the voltage testing section. Checking voltage gives you extra information that resistance measurements alone can't provide. The catch is that you can only do voltage test with the controller powered up, so you have to be extremely careful not to short anything out. First, you need a solid ground reference. The joystick frame works perfectly for this. A small grabber clip makes it easy to attach securely to the frame. Next, connect the battery. Then plug the controller into a USB port and open the Gamepad Tester website so you can monitor what's happening. Once the controller is powered on, you can start checking voltages. Begin by confirming that you have a proper 1.8 volts on the supply terminals for whatever section is having trouble. If an axis isn't responding, check that the sensor for that axis is receiving 1.8 volts. Let's go back to our earlier scenario. The R3 switch isn't working, even though the axis movements are fine for the right joystick. First, verify that 1.8 volts is present on the R3 switch's 1.8 volt supply terminals. Then move to the switch output terminals. With the switch not pressed, those output terminals should read close to 0 volts. When you press and hold the switch, the voltage on the output terminals should rise to about 1.8 volts. In fact, with the switch pressed, you should see close to 1.8 volts on all 4 R3 terminals. If the voltage does change correctly when you press the switch, going from near 0 to near 1.8 volts, then you're back to the most serious issues, either a broken trace from one of the switch output terminals to the microcontroller, or the microcontroller input itself is damaged. This is the part that differs between the left and right joysticks, and also changes depending on the mainboard model. We're looking at the top side of the right joystick area on a BDM-030 board. The trace coming from the R3 switch output terminals starts right here. As you can see, it doesn't go very far before it hits a via. All those little dots scattered across the board are vias. Think of a via as a tiny copper-plated hole that runs through the board, allowing traces on different layers to connect. This particular board is a 4-layer design, meaning there are 4 separate copper layers where connections can be routed. The trace we're interested in is made of copper, but it appears light green because of the solder mask covering it. That green layer protects the copper and prevents solder from sticking to the trace during manufacturing. We have 2 options for accessing this trace. One is to scrape the solder mask off the top layer trace near the via, but there are several other traces packed close by, and we really don't want to accidentally damage their mask or expose the wrong copper. So instead, I'll flip the board over and position it under the camera. Here is where that same via appears on the bottom layer. Notice that no trace exits from this via on the bottom side. That tells us the continuation of the trace to the microcontroller is routed on one of the inner layers, so there's no getting to that trace. The only copper exposed around this via on the bottom is a ground plane, so we're not at risk of damaging other signal traces. The trickiest part is removing just the solder mask covering the via, without scraping down into the copper itself or removing mask from the surrounding ground area. These vias are extremely small. Even a small screwdriver feels oversized for the job. You may need a magnifying glass or loupe to confirm you've exposed the copper. Even with this level of magnification, it's easy to overdo it and scrape the nearby ground mask. In practice, I usually use the sharp tip of multimeter probe to carefully scrape the mask away. A fine needle or precision pick works well too. Now the board is powered up, battery installed, USB connected, and we're ready to test. I've got the probe on the via. When I press the R3 switch, the voltage jumps to 1.8 volts. Of course, in this case, the switch is working, so I expected to see that 1.8 volts. But let's go back to our original scenario. The R3 switch is not functioning. There are 2 possible outcomes when you probe this via and press the switch. You do get 1.8 volts when the switch is pressed. That means the trace itself is intact. In this case, the problem is most likely damage to the microcontroller's input pin, possibly from static electricity or another cause. At that point, the main board is likely unrepairable. The only thing left to try would be a hardware reset of the controller. It's a long shot, but worth attempting. You do not get 1.8 volts when the switch is pressed. This almost certainly means the trace from the R3 switch output to the microcontroller has been damaged, often from mishandling during a joystick replacement. That's how you confirm whether the issue is a broken trace, which is repairable, or something deeper in the microcontroller. Here's what I believe is the most reliable way to repair this kind of trace damage. I've got my soldering iron set to about 700 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm applying just a tiny amount of solder to the exposed copper of the via. You'll definitely need a soldering iron with a very fine tip. For the jumper, I'm using 34 gauge enameled copper wire, also called magnet wire. Any very thin insulated wire will work as long as it's fine enough to route cleanly. First, I solder one end of the wire to the via. If you manage to remove the solder mask from only the via, without exposing or damaging the mask on the copper ground plane around it, the repair becomes pretty straightforward. Then I connect the other end to the nearest R3 switch output terminal. That should restore full switch function. Before powering the controller back on, there's one critical continuity check you need to do. In this case, I was careful and only exposed the copper of the via. The surrounding ground plane still has its solder mask intact. That means there shouldn't be any accidental short to ground. I'm measuring resistance between one of the R3 switch output terminals and any known ground point. The reading should be an open circuit. I'll double check that I'm actually probing ground. Yes, ground to ground shows near 0 ohms, as expected, and ground to the switch output terminal is still open. No continuity, just like it should be. If you do get a low resistance or short reading between the switch output and ground, inspect the via solder joint closely. Chances are a tiny bit of solder has bridged across the ground plane where some mask was accidentally scraped away. Fix that and retest before powering it up. One last thing. Make sure to check the link I put in the description. It takes you to a site with excellent detailed images of the different mainboards. Those images are invaluable when you're trying to locate the exact via you need to probe. Right now the collection goes up through the BDM-040, but hopefully they'll add the later mainboard versions in the future. Even better, the photos of the board with the joysticks removed can help you identify the via location without having to desolder or remove the joystick that's giving you trouble. I hope this walkthrough saves you some time and helps you fix any L3 or R3 switch issues you're dealing with. Good luck with your repairs, and thanks for watching.